I do love, because you are in Denmark and there's a city called Denmark close by. I love at times when you'll comment on my page, like when I post food places and you're like, "Oh, I can never find this in Denmark." And people are like, "Oh, check out this little shop in the city Denmark that's close by." You always have to be like, "No, no, no. Denmark, the country, not the city, the small town next to Green Bay." So that always cracks me up. Welcome to Tales from the Tundra, a show that captures one team's history told through the eyes of the fan. My name is Ben, and today I'm speaking with Peter. Peter is a massive, massive Packers fan who resides in Denmark, and I am not referring to the city in Wisconsin, which is just outside of Green Bay. I am referring to the country of Denmark, which is thousands of miles away from Green Bay. During our conversation, we talk about how he became a Packers fan despite being from Denmark, his favorite trips to Lambeau Field, some of the players he's gotten to meet over the years, and so much more. I love Peter. Peter and I go way back now at this point. I've had the opportunity of meeting him numerous times, and every time I get a chance to talk with Peter, it is so great. He's such a great guy, and I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I did. So without further delay, this is episode 10. Episode 10 already. Wow. Episode 10 of Tales from the Tundra with Peter. Enjoy. When you're from Denmark, a country that at the time had very little NFL presence, how do you become a football fan? Or even more so, how do you become a fan of the Green Bay Packers? And that's what we talk about with Peter to start.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start out by sounding like a Bears fan and say back in 1985. No, it was actually 1991.
Okay.
I finished high school and I needed to get out and explore the world a little bit. So my dad had a couple of connections and set me up with some guys in Racine. So I went up there and spent 3 months there at the end of 1991. And yeah, that's how it started. I had no idea about American football at that time. There was 3 Danish au pair girls and a Danish foreign exchange student in Racine at that time. So we kind of hung out together. And then one day somebody said to us, you know what, guys, have you ever been to an American football game? And I was like, no. Well, I've got some cheap tickets. I mean, the Packers weren't winning back then, so it was very easy and cheap to get tickets. So we actually got tickets to a game at Milwaukee County Stadium.
Wow.
Against the Bills. And they were actually pretty good that year.
Right. Yeah, they went to a Super Bowl that year.
Yep, exactly. So we went there, and it was a fun experience. We didn't really fully understand the game or the rules or anything. We came back in the office the following week, and everybody was, so how was it? I was like, yeah, it was kind of cool. It was interesting. We didn't understand all the rules, but we got there 5 minutes before the game started, and you did what? Got there 5 minutes early. That's what you're supposed to do. Oh, you did it all wrong. And then a colleague of mine, he sort of took me under his wings and said, you know what, I'm going to show you how to do it properly, because he had an extra ticket for a game later on, also at Milwaukee County Stadium against the Colts. And I think that was end of November. It was snowing. It was cold. And he said, I'm going to pick you up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was like, why? It's in Milwaukee. It's like a 30-minute drive. Why? Because we're doing it right this time. Just dress warm. So I went with him, and we got to the parking lot, and he opened the tailgate, pulled out a couple of chairs, a table, a barbecue, and I'm a big barbecue guy, so that was basically love at second sight then.
That is what a way to introduce you to the culture of being a Packers fan. So between the two games, did you really feel like much more? You mentioned the barbecue, but did you feel much more like connected and understanding of it the second time around rather than just going to see the game?
Absolutely. First of all, of course, understanding the game, it helped to have a local sit next to me and explain what was happening
Mhm.
on the field as it was played out. But for me, I didn't really I didn't really get this feeling of now I get it. This is an interesting sport. But I really got into the culture of the fans. And as I said, I've always been a big barbecue guy. Me and some of my friends, we have a competitive barbecue team. We've been competing here in Denmark at the national championships, stuff like that. Um,
Wow.
but I've grown up on barbecue. Every summer, we'd always barbecue at home. So I became a fan of the other fans first, actually, before I became a fan of the game itself.
That makes sense. I mean, it's what you could relate to. I do have to ask, since you're doing competitions, what's your like signature dish that you make for these competitions?
Well, in the competitions, I've been responsible for brisket and ribs,
Okay.
and I've actually won a Danish national championship in brisket.
Really?
So yeah, that's been pretty good for us.
That's fantastic. I did not know that about you. That's super cool, man. How long have you been doing your briskets then? Like, how long does it take you from? I know you said you've been barbecuing kind of your whole life, but
Sure.
from the time of like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna try to win this championship to the point of winning it, what was that? What was that process like for you?
It took me a couple of years to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
For different reasons. First of all, you cannot buy a brisket in Denmark. Uh,
I did not know that.
because we simply we butcher the cow in a different way, so we don't have a cut called brisket here.
Okay, so you have to like import it all in if you're gonna be doing a brisket.
Yeah, we have a couple of specialty companies here that import meat, and some of those picked up on the fact that barbecuing was really becoming very big and very popular in Denmark, and they started importing briskets.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Man, I had no idea about that. That's super cool. So, uh, to win the championship, then at that, is it just like a bragging rights that you get, or is there like a trophy? What's that involved? I know this isn't Packers related, but I'm super interested in this.
Yeah, there's a trophy and a small cash prize involved, but mostly it's about the bragging rights.
That is
Uh,
phenomenal. I've never smoked a brisket. I've watched a lot of people do it, and my brother does it. He does a good
mhm.
job at it, but I'd be curious to try yours sometime since you're a champion. That's phenomenal. You can officially say you've won more championships than the Vikings, which is great.
Yeah, but I guess that's setting the bar a little low, isn't
That's great.
it? But
So
the
do
funny
you?
thing, the guy that actually taught me really well how to do a brisket is actually a fellow Packers fan that I connected with through Facebook because I was trying to find some products that could help us in the competition, and then I stumbled on this online store, and it turns out the owner was a huge Packers fan, and I've actually run into him tailgating in Lambeau.
That is so cool.
Yep,
I was gonna ask if he was a local, like, uh,
he's
from
actually from
Denmark, but
Michigan.
he's from Michigan. Okay, so
Yep,
he's that is really cool. You just saw him tailgating at Lambeau and ran into him while you're here.
yep. Yeah,
That,
I knew he was going to be at the game, and I
sure,
talked to him about me being at the game too. So we met up
that's so
and had a beer
cool.
together.
That's very cool. Um, when now you mentioned your first two were at County Stadium. When
Mhm.
did you go to Lambeau for the first time?
I It actually took me quite a long time because I was just in Wisconsin for 3 months, and
Hmm.
then I went home and I had to go to university and I had to get my career started and all that. So I didn't actually get back to Lambeau until 2009.
Wow, that was quite a gap. So I would imagine though in that 18-year span, if my math's right, 91,
Yeah.
2009, in that 18-year span, I imagine that you were kind of keeping up with the team as you're back in Denmark or back in going to college wherever you were at.
as much as I could. Challenge was, internet was really in its infancy at that point, because yes, I am that old. So I mean, we would it really sort of became a little bit more accessible. We could watch the Super Bowls when Morten Andersen, the kicker, he started becoming really big. Um, so people started to take a little bit of an interest in it. We could watch the Super Bowl, but that was it. The rest would be if you could find some scores in a newspaper somewhere, and it was virtually impossible to follow it.
Sure.
And
so did
then
you get to see in '96 then when the Packers won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Did you get to see that Super Bowl?
That one was live on Danish television, yes.
Okay, and the time difference there, because it's 8 p.m. where you're at right now, and we're recording this at 2 p.m. Central Time. So the games have to be on ridiculously early there at that point.
The early game starts at 7 p.m. for me.
Wow. So a Super Bowl, really, I think Super Bowl generally starts here a little earlier than our night games, but that's still probably at least midnight for you to.
Yeah, it's usually midnight or something like that.
Do you find yourself taking off the following Monday? Do you watch every Super Bowl then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We, as I said, the whole barbecue team actually came together around American football.
Okay, so every Super Bowl you guys are watching together.
Yep, we're tailgating basically.
Just midnight smoking up some meats, dude. I love that so much. That sounds great. You go harder for Super Bowls than I do, and it's my American football. That's incredible. I have to give you props as well, because when we had Super Bowls like this last one or some of the ones of years past, I don't know that I'd stay up past my bedtime to watch them. I got to be honest with you, let alone for the game to start at midnight or right around there and really grind through the night. That's incredible dedication.
Well, we usually start around noon.
Wow.
And that's where a couple of us get together and we start cooking and getting things going, and then usually a couple more guys show up at around 3, and then maybe a couple more around dinner time, and then we prepared way too many snacks for us to actually even consider eating our main course, but we do it anyway. And
that is the Super Bowl. That sounds perfect.
Yeah,
you guys are doing it right. Like I said, you're doing it better than I've ever done a Super Bowl, I think. That's like a 16-hour.
Next time we'll do it with you.
I would love to do that. That'd be so much fun. That's like a 16-hour day then for any Super Bowl game.
Yep. And the problem is we eat so much that sometimes, especially if the Super Bowl itself is not very interesting, but at least if the halftime show is not interesting, that's where you catch a nap.
I suppose there is a big enough gap there. Do you generally just do barbecue, or are there any dishes that are more regional to you that you guys really like to do for your Super Bowls?
What we've always tried to do is to have at least one dish that is connected to one of the teams that are playing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So did you do like Philly cheesesteaks for this last one? Okay.
Exactly.
And then you're already nailing it with barbecue for Kansas City.
Yeah, because that'd be the ribs.
Yeah. That is a really cool tradition. And how long have you guys been doing this now?
We've been doing it for quite a few years now, I think, probably around 10 or 12.
Wow. Okay, so you guys really have done out of all the years that you've done it, is there like a regionally specific dish for one of the teams that you made that really stands out to you as far as how, like being top notch?
Ribs are always good.
Ribs can never be bad.
But my problem is that would mean that the Chiefs would have to be in the Super Bowl, and I'm not sure I'm too keen on that.
Right. So you get to watch the Packers win the Super Bowl in 1996.
Yep.
In your home. Were you said you went to university at that? Were you in university in Denmark?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in Denmark. Were you like all decked out in Packers? Were you more familiar with the game at that point, or was it still just like, hey, I like this team because of this, and this is why I'm rooting for this team?
I was I didn't understand the game anywhere near what I do today.
Mm-hmm.
But a bunch of us got together. Some of them had also been foreign exchange students and gone to the U.S. And we would just sit down and drink beer and stay up late and watch the game, and that was some good fun. Um, but I mean, we couldn't really follow it sort of on a weekly basis, so
Right.
our understanding of the game was still very limited.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing was that because that was the case for everybody living in Denmark at that point, so they would have a couple of sort of tutorials before the Super Bowl, and they would explain it kind of like for dummies.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, if you put soccer in front of me, I would have no idea. Rugby, I would have no idea. So I get it completely. You can enjoy the game and how beautiful the game is without
Yeah,
fully understanding it.
absolutely.
So I don't fault you guys at all for not understanding. And NFL has some weird rules, some weird
Yep.
just things in general that is just very odd. Even as someone who watches it, I'm not always understanding of it, and
Yeah.
let alone when you can't watch it on the regular basis because it was harder to obtain at that point.
Yeah.
So you went to your first game in 2009, first game at Lambeau, excuse me, in
Yeah.
2009. What was the game that you got to see?
That was a preseason game against the Browns.
Okay.
And most of the games that I've gotten to see have typically been connected with me traveling to the U.S. for work.
Sure.
Because flights, they can be a little bit expensive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then the hotels and all that stuff that come with
Yeah,
it too.
it all adds up.
So you come to, was that your first time ever in Green Bay?
Yeah.
Okay. So you come into Green Bay, and what's your first impressions as you're coming into the city that you've never seen before? It's probably been built up a little bit from your fandom over the years. What was your first impressions?
My first impression was it's amazing how much. I mean, people could have been from Denmark. The open, welcoming arms. Hey, I don't know who you are. Tell me something. And then you say you're from Denmark, and they go like, "What? Crazy! Hey, come on over. Let's talk and have a beer." And
Yeah, everyone's so the Midwest nice here, so welcoming
exactly.
on anyone who's coming into town, or and on my website I said that too. If it's like, because a lot of people will reach out to me about tailgating. I said, just go up and talk to people, offer
Yeah.
to buy a beer from them, or offer to buy a brat, and odds are they're going to invite you to a tailgate, and you're going to be making new friends and hearing new stories. Hey, it's Ben. I wanted to jump in and draw the winner of last week's giveaway. Before I do, I want to say thank you to all who took the time to enter, as well as Nicolay Law for making these giveaways possible. Huge shout out to Nicolay Law. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do any of this, any of these fun giveaways. So thank you so much, Nicolay Law. If you do find yourself injured, get Nicolay. Let's draw this week's winner. Hope you guys are all having a great week. This feels like a good one right here. This week, we got Chad T. Congratulations, Tully. Appreciate you entering. Let's pull that out so you can actually see. Hopefully you can see my sloppy handwriting there. Let's see what Chad won this week. All right, Chad, you have gotten yourself a Dorsey Levens signed 8x10. Thank you so much once again to all who entered, and huge thank you to Nicolay Law once again for making these possible. Now, without delaying anymore, let's get back to the episode with Peter. Because you are in Denmark and there's a city called Denmark close by, I love at times when you'll comment on my page, like when I post food places and you're like, oh, I can never find this in Denmark. And people are like, oh, check out this little shop in the city Denmark that's close by. You always have to be like, no, Denmark, the country, not the city, the small town next to Green Bay. So that always cracks me up. Do you run into that ever when you're in Green Bay, when you say you're from Denmark, that they think you're close by? Or do you
Yeah,
think,
Absolutely. I mean, people have asked me, "Oh, if you're from Denmark, do you know this and this guy?" And yeah, no,
Yeah,
sorry, it's a different kind of Denmark.
yeah, different kind of Denmark. That's great. So I would imagine in 2009, then when you came, you got to see Lambeau for the first time. Were you able to take a tour and really bask
Yeah.
in? Okay, what was your thought of as you're kind of seeing Lambeau for the first time and taking that tour? You know, what was your thoughts or impressions of that?
It was truly like, I'm finally here. At that time, we had seen a lot of increase in exposure of the NFL here in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a couple of years before, we had this new TV station start up, and they were targeting a younger audience, and they wanted to put something out there that a lot of other stations and networks did not show. So they wanted to create a niche for themselves in that sort of younger segment. So they actually started showing NFL live.
Wow.
And in the beginning, it was just one game every Sunday. And then the popularity grew. So they started to do 3 games on Sundays. And at one point, we were actually the market outside of the US that had the most live games. We
Really?
had we had three on Sunday, and we had Thursday night, and we had Monday night.
That's incredible. Is it still that set up for you now, or do you have to do more special packages to get NFL games?
Right now, I think a couple of years ago it changed a little bit because the network stopped showing it,
Mm-hmm.
and then a different network picked it up. And yeah, to be honest, the commentators on that network were, yeah, not really very good.
Oh, so do they have? I guess I didn't even think about that. Do they have like more local based commentators then?
Yeah, yeah, they have Danish hosts and commentators,
I did not think about that at all. I would think
yeah,
that you'd get the same ones that we get for the game, but that I suppose that makes sense. That's just my ignorance to it of not understanding or never experiencing it. So yeah, that could really make or break your experience.
yeah, it can. So now we're all on this the zone, or what it's called, where you can buy access to all the games.
Okay. And then when you're buying the access, do you get like the American commentators then?
Yes.
Okay. So it does make for a different product then across the board in that way where you
Yeah.
kind of get what everyone else is or everyone else in America is getting.
Yeah, we're getting the American commercials too.
Oh, what's your thought on that? Because my wife and I went to Italy for our honeymoon,
Hmm.
and we didn't have a ton of time to watch TV because we were just like running amok constantly. But there was one night where we got back from like a walkout and dinner and stuff, and it was late. But we had a TV on in our TV in our room, and I put it on because I was like, I want to see European commercials. I can't understand any of it, but I want to see like Italian commercials and see how different they were. So I'm curious your thought. What do you guys feel about the American commercials? Because they're bizarre. There's some odd ones out there.
Yeah, I think what strikes us the most is the amount of commercials for insurances and medical products,
Yeah, the
and
pharmacy
also
ones.
the warnings that are attached to all of the medical commercials.
It is a little odd to be like, oh, ask your doctor about this medicine. And it's like, shouldn't your doctor be telling you about this
Yeah,
medicine? You shouldn't be
exactly.
asking your doctor about this medicine. So I definitely get that. I noticed that when I was in Italy too. It's very very minor, but that's funny. So anyway, kind of getting back to it, you come back in 2009. You get to watch a preseason game.
Yeah.
Um, how was the game of actually being at Lambeau Field? And preseason's probably a little bit up or down just because people are there just to kind of relax and have fun, but it's not as like amplified.
No, and it was the first preseason game of the season, and it was a shutout. It was the Browns. So the game in itself was not very intense, but just the whole experience of being there and
Mm-hmm.
talking to people outside of the stadium is, yeah, That was for me sort of the most important part.
That's incredible. And then when did you? How many games have you been at now at Lambeau Field
At
since then?
Lambeau, oh, that's a good question.
Because I think did we walk around together in 17?
Yep, we
Was it
did.
was it 17?
Yeah, it would have been
Was that the
around.
Bengals? Was that the Bengals game? No, no, no,
Uh,
no. That wasn't the Bengals game. I'm trying to think.
that was a. I was there in 17 for the Saints game.
Okay.
That
I'm
was
trying to,
Brett Huntley's first career start.
okay. I'm trying to think. I don't know if that was the one we walked together or not, but so you've been to Lambeau Field a handful of times then since
Yeah, probably
2009.
around 12 times now.
Wow. Out of all of those, what is your favorite game that you've gotten to experience?
I think that one for me is pretty easy. That will be the Patriots game.
Oh wow, 2014.
Yep. That was amazing. You
Talk
get the
about
Patriots at the top of their game. You get Aaron Rodgers and his whole receiving core at the top of their game. And
yeah. I mean, really two solid fan bases.
yeah,
Talk about a contrast of crowd from your first game in 2019 to that game. I mean, that's a
yeah,
that and that was a primetime game, if I'm not mistaken. I'd
yeah,
hard to believe it wouldn't be anything but primetime. That is an incredible best game. What
yeah.
was your favorite? As you've taken all these trips, is that your favorite trip entirely, or is there any other trip that like maybe not from the game perspective, but just from what you've done while you're here? That are you drinking a spotted cow?
Yes, I am.
Wow, that is. I love the subtle spotted cow flex over in Denmark. That is incredible. I would assume from one of your most recent trips, you've packed some on your to go.
Yeah, actually, I did, but that's not why I have this one because they've been gone for a long time.
How did you smuggle that over into Denmark?
I have a colleague in my company here in Denmark who's stationed at our factory in Louisville right now,
Okay.
and he talked to some of the colleagues over there that knows me really well, and he was going to visit some customers in Wisconsin. So he called me and he said, "You know what? I've heard that your favorite beer is Spotted Cow. I'm actually in Wisconsin right now, and I'm coming back to Denmark in 3 weeks, and I have an empty suitcase."
Wow, that is incredible that they thought of you and brought that back.
Absolutely. So, instant employee of the year for him.
That blew my mind, man. That you just casually drinking a spotted cow. That was nice of them to bring back. Now, I would imagine that it's like something that you savor like one every once in a while.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I have a friend in Phoenix and he's from Wisconsin. His friends will bring him back some, and he's like, I only drink one every Packers game, and it's like a whole ordeal. So I could imagine it's. I don't even know what I was going to ask you now. I kind of got thrown off, but I
I
think I
think
was. I think I was
you were
just asking
asking
like,
about my favorite experience actually,
yeah, your like favorite experience overall in Green Bay.
and that would actually have been in 2021, because that's when I got to go to Lambeau with my barbecue team.
and was that their first time collectively at Lambeau Field?
Yep. And the barbecue team is a little bit weird because we have one Bucks fan, we have one Rams fan, and then there's two of us Packers fan.
Okay.
And we had been out of competitive barbecuing for a while because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started back up, but the format didn't really work for us. So we decided not to participate that year. But we were getting a little bit antsy and, hey, we got to do something. And then we looked at the schedule when it was released, and lo and behold, the Rams are playing at Lambeau. So we talked about it, and even the Bucks guy, he was like really excited. Hey, my team ain't playing, but I get to go to Lambeau.
That's awesome.
And the cool thing was that was the Thanksgiving weekend. So we actually flew in on Wednesday, and then we drove to Detroit, and we were in Ford Field for the Thanksgiving game against the Bears.
Very cool.
And then after that game, we drove to Green Bay and saw the game against the Rams.
How was the experience for the Lions game?
Well, the funny thing is the Green Bay barbecue guy that I told you about with the brisket and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him and I said, do you know any guys, because he's from Michigan, do you know any guys tailgating in Detroit that we could perhaps meet up with? And he said, yeah, I know exactly the guy. And he put me in touch with a wonderful Lions fan, Greg, who actually happened to be the Lions fan of the year that year.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yep. He just welcomed us to his tailgate with open arms, and we were having fun with him and his family and his friends. And then we went to the game, and the game wasn't that exciting, but it was an experience that we got to see another game, but for me, sort of the best part of that experience was again tailgating with the other fans and talking about their fandom. And they even had one family member who was actually a Bears fan who was also there. And yeah,
poor person.
Yeah, there's a black sheep in every family.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the black sheep in mine. All my family's Vikings fans, so
yeah,
you got to have the black sheep. I'm glad I went that route rather than Minnesota. But was there tailgating very similar then to what you see in Green Bay as far as?
No, it's more scattered because they don't have this big parking lot next to the stadium because it's downtown.
Sure.
So
sure.
it was definitely not the same vibe, but if you had a crew that you would tailgate with, then it would be great fun.
That's awesome. So you guys get to come here, tailgate here, go to the Rams game. I want to say I was at that game, but they all blur together at this point. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I was, because we kind of narrowly beat them, if I'm not mistaken, in that 21 year.
It was, I think it was 28-36.
Okay. Yeah. I don't, it all blends together over the years as you go to more and more games. But so you get to experience that game. You get to tailgate that. Your friend's a Rams fan. He gets to see his team. Was that his first time seeing his team play in person then as well?
No, I think he'd seen them play before, but I think what really was exciting for him was that even though they lost, that was actually the season they won the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
So he saw them in that season, so I think that was pretty cool.
That is very cool. And I'm trying to think, I had something else, and then I'm kind of all over the place here. As you've come to town numerous times now, is there any place that you've dined at that you've really enjoyed, or any place that really stands out to you?
There are two things that I always have to have, besides copious amounts of spotted cow. And one of them is because of you.
Okay.
I have to go get wings at Legendary.
That's what I was assuming you were going. I'm glad that you go there. I feel like we've talked about that before. Do you have a flavor of choice when you go there every time, or do you kind of mix it up?
I mix it up. It's not like and I can't even remember the different flavors that they have. So it's more like a spur of the moment thing.
Right.
But I always have to go to Legendary's. That's for sure. I'm
glad I can inspire that for you. Yeah, it's a great wing place. I love Legendary's, and I'm with you there, and I'm glad that I could share that with you. What's the other thing that you get every time you come?
The other thing that I have to get every single time is the cheese curds at 1919.
I would agree 100%. I'm not a big 1919 fan as far as food and a lot of stuff, but their cheese curds have to be some of the best cheese curds. A lot of the other food I could deal without, but their cheese curds are incredible. Have you Have you gotten raw cheese curds while you're here?
Yeah. I mean, basically, my diet is spotted cow cheese curds and Legend Larry's when I'm in Wisconsin.
But have you gotten like the raw ones, or you
Yep.
always do fried?
No.
Okay.
I also have tried the raw ones.
Okay, because
Um,
I would assume you've been around the block a time or two, so I'd assume you've tried all of them. But some people come here and get like the deep fried ones, and they think that's what a cheese curd
yeah.
is, by itself. So,
But,
uh,
but but that for me is the biggest challenge with me living in Denmark. It's the complete and utter lack of spotted cow and cheese curds. We cannot get fresh cheese curds in Denmark. It's simply not a product that people use, so we don't have it, even though we have such a huge tradition for dairy and cheese in Denmark.
I'm surprised that if you're big cheese consumers, I'm surprised that no one does curds there.
Hmm.
But I suppose I mean, even on the West Coast in America, some people don't even know what cheese curds are. I don't know why. It's just like a Midwest thing that they do them. Or I'm sure there are the other parts of America, but I know I've talked to people on the West Coast that didn't even know what they were.
Mhm.
Hey, it's me again. Sorry to jump in, but I wanted to give you this week's Nicolay Law phrase of the week so you can enter for your chance to win an awesome Packers prize. If you've never done so before, find the giveaway link, which is going to be either in the show notes or the comments. Click on that link, and it's going to ask you for a phrase of the week. This week's phrase of the week is none other than Rashawn Gary, who is also in partnership with Nicolay Law. If you're around the Green Bay area, you'll see Rashawn on billboards here. So that's this week's phrase of the week. Rashawn Gary, the Packers outside linebacker. Or is he a defensive end now? Whichever he is, right? Pass rusher. Maybe I'll say pass rusher. So go in, fill out that form, put in Rashawn Gary when it asks you the phrase of the week, and you could win next week's giveaway drawing. Huge thank you once again to all of you for your support and Nicolay Law. I say this a lot, but without Nicolay Law, these would not be possible. So thank you so much, Nicolay Law. If you are injured, get Nicolay. Now let's get back to our conversation with Peter. The thing I want to talk to you about as we're talking again or doing the show again for the first time in a long while, the NFL's changed quite a bit as far as where games are being played. We're seeing games now play more internationally. We have Packers played in Brazil. They've played in the UK. We saw a game in Germany. I think Ireland's getting a game. It's not a very favorable thing for a lot of people here for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are like, no, I want it to stay in America. But I personally think it's cool to see the game grow into these different markets and allow these fans. Have you, or are you planning to in the future, going to some of these international games as they get a little bit closer to you?
Actually, I've already been to one.
Okay. Which one did you go to?
That was the Jacksonville Jaguars against the 49ers in London quite a few years back.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a lot of years ago, actually. And it was a birthday present from one of the guys in the barbecue team.
Very cool.
So
how was
amazing.
that experience for you?
It was fun. It was cool to see the fans of all the different teams coming together to enjoy a game. But if you've only gone to an international game as a European, you simply do not understand the tradition and the culture and the ambiance that is at Lambeau Field, for example.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So are you in favor of the of international games happening more and more, or what's your thought on that? With that being said, of like the ambiance not maybe being the same.
I'm a little bit torn, actually.
Okay.
Because I think for the sake of the sport and it is a business, so expanding it to include as many potential customers as possible, I think is a good thing. However, it is virtually impossible to get tickets.
Oh, sure.
For the Munich game the last time, I think there were 2 million people in the queue to buy tickets.
Wow.
So it is virtually, even though we say, okay, yeah, you get 3 games in Europe, you have to go through a travel agent or something and buy it as a package deal, and that drives up the cost quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not so, I think people should just be able to, go online, buy a ticket, enjoy the game.
Hmm.
Um, but that is becoming increasingly difficult for people to do because the demand is so high.
I suppose because they're so few and far between that
Yeah,
you have that choice or no choice or no option to go. So that makes sense. That makes it's quite a conundrum to
it is. It is. And I mean, any day of the week, I would much prefer to watch a game at Lambeau or
mhm.
virtually any other stadium in the US because the atmosphere is so much more vibrant.
Sure, that makes sense. Um you when we were talking, I think before we started recording, you mentioned the last time you came
Mhm.
and watched a Packers game was you went to San Francisco during that playoff run.
Yeah,
Jordan Love's first year as starter.
yeah,
The outcome wasn't in our favor, but how was your experience at is it Levi Stadium? Is that what it
yeah.
is still? Okay. I couldn't remember if that's the old stadium. How was your experience at Levi?
I had a couple of heart attacks along the way during the game. I think um, the game was really exciting. It's going back and forth. We really thought we had a chance, especially after we beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So for me, it was actually kind of a spur of the moment thing to go there, even though it sounds a little bit crazy to fly, 6,000 miles or something like that as a spur of the moment thing. But nobody expected us to do very well in the playoffs. So when we beat the Cowboys, I was like, hey, this could really work out. And we have a local airline that flies from Copenhagen direct to San Francisco. I had some points saved up, some miles. So I just, asked my wonderful wife, do you mind if I get out of town for a couple of days and do something crazy? And she was okay with that. She's a very forgiving woman. So uh, off I went. And
That's incredible.
yeah, and it was great fun. The day before we had the pep rally at a bar, and great meeting other fans. Um, Going out to the stadium, it was a different vibe than Lambeau.
Hmm.
A lot of great fans, a lot of great banter, a little bit of trash talk here and there. Um, but it was the first time I also had this feeling of something a little bit more aggressive.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, and I don't know what it was, if it was just me misinterpreting the situation, but it was a little bit more feisty than a game at Lambeau, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, and after the game, there were a couple of situations where I thought, hey, this is not how this is supposed to be, right? I mean, you won the game, excellent, but hey, there's no need to rub it in physically.
Sure. That makes sense. Is that your only away game you've been for the Packers?
No, I've been to a game in St. Louis. I've been to a game in Washington, New York. Where else have I been? Tennessee.
Okay, so you've been to a handful of away games to cheer
Yep.
on the Packers. Maybe it's just a different vibe in San Francisco. I have heard not the greatest things about watching a game in San Francisco or the fans there, and I'm sure it's amplified by the rivalry that the two teams have, how far
Yeah.
back they go, just in general how that is. So that's unfortunate that was the experience that you had
Yeah,
of just
especially because I've had such great experiences when we've played the Vikings, for example, at Lambeau.
yeah.
I mean, yes, we're rivals. Yes, it's about bragging rights for the next couple of months, and it's a must-win game. But still, after the game, we can still drink a beer and have some fun. And
It's that Midwest nice, man. We're
yeah,
we're all way too nice here in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and
I
just
don't think that's way too nice. I think that's just how it's supposed to
yeah,
be.
I would agree. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, what I've always said is like, it's a game, it's entertainment. It's not
Exactly.
whether the Packers win or lose doesn't really impact my life. Yes, I'm happier when they win, but ultimately I still have my job, I have my health, I have my family,
Yeah.
and the sun's going to come up the next day. It's going to be fine. Now, some losses are more painful than others, but I would never berate anyone or anything like that because my team beat their team. That just seems silly to me.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, uh, I mean, I'm glad all in all it was a trip that you got to make, and I'm glad
Mhm.
everyone stayed safe there. Was the tailgating very odd? Because I'm sure their space is pretty limited where they have their stadium as well.
They actually have a lot of space, so there was a lot of tailgating
Okay.
going on in front of the stadium, and yeah, I mean, I ran into a guy who was, he was the funniest guy ever. He stopped me. I was walking past him. He stopped me and said, "You cannot walk past here without accepting this." And I was like, "What are you doing?" Then he ran off. Then he came back with a cheese grater and grated cheese in front of me as I was walking.
See, that's good banter. That's
Exactly.
that's fun banter. That
Exactly.
no one's offended, no one's hurt.
No.
That's great. One thing I was going to ask you with games being throughout the season, we talked about the time difference. Do you get to watch every game live, or do you kind of catch up on some of the other ones, like record them and watch them the next day when it is a later game for you?
The late games can be tough because I have to get up at 7 in the morning
Right.
or actually at 6 and get to work. So if the game ends at 5, then yeah, I'm not young enough anymore to deal with that.
I don't
But
blame you.
but with this the zone that I've bought, this streaming service, almost immediately after the games are done, they are on their website and you can watch them whenever you want to.
Oh, that's incredible. So do you just like kind of put blinders on the whole day and say, "Don't tell me what happened
Yep.
to the game," or do you generally check the score beforehand?
No, if it's a really exciting game, I try to avoid all social contact, which is difficult because I work in HR.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
uh, but um, but most of the time, yeah, if it's a game that we should win, I might sneak a peek at the result. But they have this service that they call Game in 40.
Okay.
So they basically just cut from one snap to the next. And there's no commercials, there's nothing extra. It's just snap, snap, snap. So
That's
that means you can actually
fantastic.
watch the game in 40 minutes. So I usually
40
then,
minutes.
yeah.
Wow. I
So
suppose you take out a lot of that filler. You
yeah.
go.
And so if I'm a little bit naughty, I'll catch those 40 minutes during my lunch break.
Dude, I would do the same thing, especially you got an hour lunch, just knock it out.
Now I only got 30 minutes. That's
Oh,
why
you
I'm
don't
being
you only got
naughty.
30 minutes. Okay. I mean, you can fast forward a few here or there just to get it done.
Yeah, but I don't have like strict times
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So
you're
I'll just
you're you're a better man than me though, Peter, because I during a game sometimes anxiety gets so high that I feel like I would just be like googling it and be like, okay, what's the outcome here, just so I can give my heart a little bit of a relax, for the rest of this game, whether we win or lose at least. But that also takes away a lot of the fun experiences with it too. So
yeah.
that's a tough thing. I noticed on the wall behind you, you have your Favre, you have your Jerry Kramer jerseys, signed jerseys. Did you just pick up the jerseys while you were in town and then come and bring them back and get them framed there? Or were you able to buy like the piece itself? What's the story with how you got those all the way to Denmark?
Both of those are jerseys that I had signed in person in Green Bay.
Very cool. I suppose I should have guessed that because the Favre is an actual jersey and not a signing jersey.
Yeah.
So did you get a chance to meet Favre, or was it a
Yeah.
private signing?
No, I met him. So it was a personal signing, and the same with Jerry Kramer. Um, excellent fun to meet those guys. I was especially blown away by Jerry.
Cherry's the best.
Yeah, I mean, I have this. Of course, the frozen Tundra man.
Yes, yes.
And the hats that he make, I have one of those, and mine has a Danish flag on the side of it.
I don't think I noticed that because I think you were wearing that when we were walking around Lambeau. I don't think I noticed the flag.
Okay.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And so I wore that hat to both signings, and Jerry Kramer immediately picked up on it, and I that was actually my first autograph signing. If you get autographs in Denmark, it's not a commercial business. People will pay a sports star or somebody famous to come, and they will sit, and then you can just show up and get a free autograph. So I didn't really understand this whole, do you want inscriptions? You have to pay for an extra ticket and all these things. So I had just bought the jersey, and I bought an autograph basically. And so I had no clue how this was going to go. So I just showed up and the jersey and talked a little bit to Jerry, and he just kept on writing on my jersey. And I think it was probably his manager or somebody sitting next to him. And he said, "Oh, you're really being nice to this guy." And he just looked at him and said, "You know what? This man traveled all the way from Denmark to be here and meet me. The least I can do is put a little bit of ink on his jersey."
That is awesome. That is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry's just class act all around.
Absolutely.
I feel like he tells a story for every autograph he does.
Yeah,
if you just
more
listen,
or less.
if you sit there, you get to listen to like his whole catalog of stories. But what a cool interaction that you got to have with him.
Yeah. And I actually also got to talk a little bit with Brett when I did that signing, because I wore the same hat, and he actually also picked up on the Danish flag. And he probably very sort of typical for Brett, asked, "Denmark, you got any good beers over there?" So I had to tell him, you know what? Yeah, we got plenty of good beers, but that's mainly because, you know what they say, American beer is like making love in a canoe. It's fucking close to water.
Oh, that's great. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. I love that so much. That is incredible. It's interesting though that then your one of your favorite beers is Spotted Cow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is for me, this is the exception.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you got to stay hydrated sometimes too. So if even if you're gonna have a little bit of water, you can enjoy it that way. That's great. That made my day, man. I appreciate you sharing that. So out of all the people, and I'm gonna exclude Jerry Kramer here, who's your favorite player you've gotten to meet? Because I know you've gotten to meet a handful of them with Magic Man, Favre.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite that you got to interact with?
It was very quick, but I was just standing outside of Lambeau Field. Players were coming back after practice, and I got to talk a little bit with Aaron Jones. And I mean, he is the only Vikings player that I have ever rooted for.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that either.
Guy.
Yeah, he is an incredible character.
Yeah.
So humble, so down to earth. Yeah, I don't think you're alone on that. That was the painful part about him going to Minnesota, is you're like, man, now I gotta at least root that he does well, even if the team doesn't. You want them to not do well, but you still love the guy regardless of the jersey he's wearing.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I gotta pull up my thing. As you've been watching these, and I think we did these last time too, I do always like to ask some kind of hard hitting questions here at the end. So I appreciate you taking the time to share your story again. I enjoyed hearing it last time, and it's been kind of a nice refresher because it's been so long. First one here for you. You can sit down, have a conversation. You get to sit down, have a conversation with any person associated with the Green Bay Packers, alive or dead. And I'm excluding Vince Lombardi because he was taken too often. Who would you choose and why?
For me, that's an incredible different question, a difficult question, because my favorite player has always been Reggie White. But I feel that Reggie is probably also one of the players that would get selected a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I would love to talk to Bart Starr. I would love to talk to him. If we had to go a little bit more sort of out of the ordinary, I think, what was his name? Jack Vinisi or Jack Vincini or something like that. The scout that created the team basically that Lombardi took over.
Okay. Very
I think
cool.
that would have been incredible to have a conversation with him about what was scouting back then. I think that could
Right.
be. He must have met some people, and he could probably share some stories that would be amazing.
What an out of the box pull. Nice job, Peter. I like that answer. Um, when you are in town next,
Mhm.
during the week, if you not for the draft, because I know you're coming in just on the weekend. We were talking about that, but next time you're in town, if you're in town and have a little bit of time to burn during the week, they opened up a Bart and Cherry Star Museum, like about an hour
Really?
away. That is at the Rawhide
Yep.
organization. He did a lot with the Rawhide, but they beautiful museum at the Rawhide organization, and they have like his MVP car, and they have
Oh wow.
um about how him and Cherry met and their like love and how it kind of grew, and it's all about their family. And then it goes into like his football days, and they have stuff from his office. It's a super cool museum that I'd recommend anyone to check out if you have the time.
I would
It's
love to.
weird hours, but because it's on the boys ranch, but I
Yeah,
definitely recommend that.
but I would love to, especially because I mean, I was at the game where Bart Starr was in Green Bay for the last time.
Was that
I think that was for the 50th anniversary of the Hall of Fame.
okay?
He came up, he donated his Super Bowl rings, and that's some memorabilia for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I caught a little glimpse of him there. And then I was actually also at the game at Lambeau where they celebrated his life after he passed away.
I think that's the one we walked around together. The game against
That could be the
Minnesota,
one, yeah.
right?
Yep,
Or we all got the star pins.
yep. And I
Yeah.
still have that pin on my Reggie White jersey that I always wear to my games.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, what a great answer to that question. That was a very unique answer on that. I love that pull. So if you could watch any game again for the first time, sharing the same exact feelings, emotions, everything throughout it for the first time, and I'm going to exclude a Super Bowl or
Mhm.
anything like that, which game would you choose and why?
That would be, I mean, again, I would be going back to two of the same games. It was just me. It would be the Patriots game that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could bring somebody, I would bring my barbecue boys back and go see that Rams game.
Phenomenal. I love that. Dude, I need to get to Denmark and experience that sometime. That would be I don't know I don't know much about like Danish food
Mhm.
as far as what is like a common Danish dish for you guys?
Uh, our national dish is a fried pork dish where we take basically really thick slices of bacon and fry them.
Okay.
Uh,
I think I could get down with that.
I think most people can,
Okay.
for sure. We also have a very traditional dish that we eat around Christmas, which is a pork roast. So we take basically the cutlet of the pork, but we leave the skin on top, so we get that crispy skin on top.
You
It's
sold
very
me.
traditional Danish Christmas food.
Yeah, you sold me. I just want to make sure I'm a pretty picky eater, so I have to make sure I can eat where I go to these places. You know, I gotta. That was like when my wife and I were doing our honeymoon. We're like, Italy's safe, pizza and pasta. That's in our
Yep.
wheelhouse, but you know, we don't do like a ton of seafood, and some countries do a lot of seafood, and like I got to make sure I can eat when I'm there. So both of those sound incredible.
Come to Denmark. We got a lot of pork.
I would love to come to Denmark. That sounds
And
incredible.
actually, one of the guys from Lot One that I've been tailgating with, he's coming over to visit me this summer.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Now, if someone were to go to Denmark, is it hard to kind of navigate around if you don't speak the language, or do most people speak English?
Everybody speaks English here. Everybody's taught English from, I think, third or fourth grade.
I'm envious of you guys. I wish we did that here more in America. I wish they kind of opened up. I guess that's a conversation for another day. But I wish that they just like made us more well-rounded and gave more of those opportunities to learn a different language from an early age. Because I feel like that's how the world should work. But that's great that I didn't know that about Denmark at all. If you could attend any game in the history of the Green Bay Packers, taking away championships, which game would you choose and why?
The obvious answer would be the Ice Bowl, right?
I'm taking that away because I'm technically counting that as a championship.
A championship game.
Yep, that's why. That is exactly why I had to take that away because everyone's in the Ice Bowl.
So what game would I go to? A fun one would be the Brett Favre first game. That would be a fun one to witness.
That'd be
but probably for the sort of emotional significance of it, it would be the Raiders game with Brett Favre in Oakland.
Love that answer. You cannot go wrong there.
No.
My new favorite. I'll actually ask you this one because I've on the current team. Because you like your beer. Who would you like to sit down and have some beers with from the current team?
From the current team,
yes. I asked Matt Ramage who he thought on the team could outdrink him. So maybe I'll pose it as that way. Who do you think on this team could outdrink you beer for beer?
A lot of people. I don't actually drink that much, but. So I think a lot of them probably could just based on pure body size and
that's fair.
But who would I like to sit down and have a beer with? I think Jerry Alexander would be fun.
He would be interesting, I think, to have some beers with. The stories he'd probably tell you. I like that. Everyone's been saying Tucker Kraft, so I like that. That
I think he's probably the obvious answer because he seems like a down to earth guy that you would find in a dive bar somewhere.
Yeah, he's small town because I think he's from like some small town in South Dakota or something like that. So
but
very much resonates.
I mean, he's not on the team anymore, but AJ Dillon would also have been.
Yeah, he would be a fun one too.
Yeah,
I would like to talk to him just to see. Because he really embraced the Midwest culture truly by living here in Green Bay in general. So I'd love to hear his perspective on it all. So those are some good answers. Final one here. Green Bay doesn't have a traditional owner.
Mm-hmm.
But if you woke up tomorrow and you were the guy at the Packers, you had full, complete say over anything in the organization, what would be the first thing that you do and why?
Well, it's a tricky question, right? Because, I mean, everybody's a Monday morning quarterback and everybody is an off-season GM.
Yep.
And I don't think that many fans completely understands all the goings on behind running this team.
I would agree with you.
So most of the time, my approach to the decisions that are made by the organization is, let's wait and see. Even though sometimes I get fired up too, and I find it difficult to understand it, and it might take a little bit of time to sort of get back onto that. Let's wait and see.
I'm with you.
So for me, it would be. I mean, I do have a pet peeve with the organization, and it's as a foreign fan. Because the Packers, they often on social media invite people to participate in competitions and stuff like that, but you have to live within the United States.
Interesting. As far as like giveaways, or is it just
giveaways, competitions? They have win tickets for a game or something like that. It's always only for U.S. citizens. So if they really want to spread out the game to other countries, that would be my one small contribution to global fandom would be, hey, open it up for the rest of us.
I think I can get behind that. That's a good policy for sure. Anything else that you feel we didn't talk about that would be something that you wanted to bring up, or anything else that you think we missed?
I don't know. I think it's always great talking to you, and I
Likewise.
really enjoy our conversations, because for me, this is one of the most important things about football is connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
I think football has the sort of, it's an opportunity for people to connect, and it's an opportunity for people to connect even though they have differences of opinion. They obviously sometimes support different teams, but this football has the potential to unite people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me is the most important thing. And I think that's exactly what we're doing when we're having conversations like this about what we find meaningful, instead of just having conversation about, this GM, he's an idiot, and, fire him, and that sort of thing.
And that is going to do it for our conversation with Peter. I hope you guys all enjoyed it as much as I did. I love speaking with Peter. He's such a great guy. I'm so jacked we got the opportunity to have this conversation once again. So a huge thank you to Peter for making that possible. If you want to be on an episode of Tales from the Tundra, you can find the form. Fill that form out. It'll either be in the show notes or the comments, but you can fill that out. And I want to say also thank you so much to Nicolay Law for sponsoring this episode. Really, they allow me to do so many great things content-wise and things that wouldn't be possible without their support. So thank you so much, Nicolay Law. And yeah, until next time, once again, I'm Ben. You've been listening to me talk and ramble the whole episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. And until next time, go Pack Go.